Test.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. We appreciate it. So that brings us to information, presentations, and actions. And I would like to turn it over to Superintendent Dart for the superintendent's report.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a very exciting summer, and first of all, just an honor to serve and to begin officially my work with the board. And thank you for carving out some time in this summer. This is not one of our normally scheduled meetings, but I thought it was important to make sure that the board was prepared to hear information about our startup, the things that happened over the summer, to make sure that we are student and staff ready. I want the board to know that most important throughout my work and conversations this summer, I have held really tightly to our core beliefs, the 6 core beliefs that are in the development plan. I think that that's an important driver in all those conversations to make sure that there's alignment and coherence in all that we do. You may recall that in the late spring, early summer, I shared with you an entry plan, and I'd like to just update you in terms of that work. My entry plan was based on the Harvard Public Education Leadership Project, which really thinks about the big buckets of work and how school systems operate in terms of culture, structure, stakeholders, resources, and systems. This was helpful for me to organize my conversations, my thinking, and really to help me target the experiences that would help me best understand the needs of the district and where we are. And so I had 5 strategic goals in that entry plan: to engage stakeholders, to really think about the events that shape our culture, to think about the structures here at town and the Board of Education, review district systems, and identify resources and supports that help us do what we do. And so I am really proud to share the listening and learning work, and you should too, because throughout my journey, throughout every conversation that I had, there were these themes that emerged that were really helpful for me to think about where we were in terms of our work as a district. And so, number one, Mansfield is extremely proud of our schools, and that was echoed throughout all conversations and stakeholders. They talked about the power of our core beliefs and that they were understanding how they were driving. They understood how that was a driver in our work. There was acknowledgement that there is a disposition for continuous good to great kind of improvement that's desired and needed. So it indicates that we're ready for good conversations and good work that align and to move us forward. They also indicated that coherence and clarity are important. And that is really a key learning for me to make sure that as we move forward, making sure that our message is on point and that it aligns to the district's development plan and that it lands in our actions, and that when we see our classrooms, our students, our families engage in our programs, that there's coherence and a direct alignment back to our core beliefs. There was also an acknowledgement of tradition and innovation. We are an amazing district that has very strong traditions and beliefs, but that doesn't mean we're a community that doesn't also embrace innovation. And I think that speaks to the good to great conversations that people identified that, yeah, we need to continue to work and reflect and be cognizant to our needs in our students, in our classrooms. I think also, because of the consolidation of the elementary schools, there is acknowledgement that we need to shift our thinking from a system of schools to a school system, that we're really going from 4 schools that had strong identities, that had some autonomy, and that was great. But as we consolidate, we want to bring those practices in alignment and really start thinking about how do we leverage being a school system with consistency across the buildings, across grade levels, and classrooms. I think also there was just an acknowledgement of structures and systemic thinking, that it's time to really think about how do we bring things to scale, how do we support teachers, professional learning, I think a great example of this from our non-certified staff, our para-educators, how do we give them access to professional learning? And so we're seeing some early wins by bringing in paraeducators and non-certified staff members that haven't traditionally participated in our professional learning experiences, and being a little more intentional by having them sit side by side with us during the summer and these early experiences. And then finally, this was best resonated with my visit to town council and the Human Rights Commission here in town, that our partners, agency, and community members want to help and work with us. They're excited to partner with us and to hear our good work and to think about how they can best align to it. So I will continue my entry plan and entry work and look forward to engaging. I appreciate the board members who carved out time for me to meet with them one-on-one, and I will continue to do that because it's important to listen, learn, and really contextualize our work this fall and going on. I'm super excited. I'm going to shift to staffing. Contrary to what many of us are reading in the newspaper and seeing in the media about staffing shortages that are plaguing many districts across the country, we are in excellent shape. We just onboarded, or hired rather, our food service director, Mariah Popolewski-Tilley, who will be starting a little bit later. But the only current searches that we have are a couple para-educator positions and our need to name an assistant principal at the middle school. But special education position, teaching positions are filled, ready to go. And that is definitely very different when you look at the national, even statewide scope of staffing, that many districts struggle to find people to fill their positions. So that's another indication that we are ready and that we're student staff ready for the first day of school. I wanted to update you about water quality testing. This summer, we've had multiple conversations with community members and staff members about water quality. I think it's important for the board to have some information to contextualize that so that you're current and that you're staying on top of that. Because, of course, the Board of Education and all staff members know that safe water is absolutely paramount. It's our priority. And because we're on a well system, we frequently test our water. The state DPH sets out guidelines that we're constantly testing the water. And whenever there is an amount of something that shouldn't be there, such as lead, we then undergo a revised plan of testing to continue to monitor that, and then immediately start to work on a mitigating plan. Of course, for many of us who are on well water, we see these challenges, especially during the drought. And so these systems are already in place, and for years and years and years, we've been monitoring, testing, and making sure that we're compliant, but we're also mitigating any challenges with it.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes.
How often are we testing the water? Is it quarterly? Every few months? What's the schedule, testing schedule?
Yes, good question. So based on the results of those testing, we'll often change how often we're testing. So if the water was safe and there were no identified trace amounts of things that shouldn't be in the water, then it's an annual testing. But as soon as something comes up, then it can be as frequently as month to month. I know we have our Director of Facilities, Alan Corson. So Alan, I'm going to invite you up to add to the frequency of testing, but it's different at each site based on the results.
I'm concerned because we've had a drought, and once the drought is over, when we have a surplus of rain, I'm thinking that there might be different results, and I think that we need to consider all those factors in testing, and I don't know if once a year is enough testing, especially in that site when there's been a history of odd plumes and so forth filtering around in the, underneath the geothermal areas. So I would be in favor of more frequent testing. Thank you.
I thought we tested quarterly. I mean, for the longest time, we've been testing quarterly. When did it become annual?
Sorry. It depends on what kind of tests we're looking at. For bacteria, that's done quarterly for every place.
Okay.
And then if they find a bacteria, typically in the form of coliform, then we have to test until we have that out of the system. Typically, we got to chlorinate the system, and then we test until we don't have it. We also do a survey of the system to see any potential obvious things that we can catch and then repair those.
So what's annual?
Typically, more the lead testing was done on an annual basis. Depending on, once they see lead, then they kick it up to like every 6 months, and that's what we're doing right now.
Thank you. This is an example of why we need a new elementary school. So we have known that the aging infrastructure of the elementary school, plumbing, fixtures, could be problematic. And I think that that's just another example of when we shift to the new building, the compliance and the ability to ensure safe water will continue. And we won't worry about the aging fixtures that were once in our older buildings. But I think it's important to understand that we have a mitigating practice in place. So making sure that we're replacing fixtures, that we're bypassing when needed, we're using filtered water and bubblers or bottled water. I think what also helped us during the pandemic, our schools had closed down our drinking fountains and used more of bottled water that came from home with the students, and then used the refilling stations that had filtered water. So those are the practices. We'll continue to use them as we are still using the Vinton and Goodwin campus, even though the test results indicate that the water is fine and safe in those locations. But having the bubblers in place, having those practices in place, will minimize or completely reduce the need for the water, for drinking water that's coming right straight from the tap.
Excuse me. I understood that the lead, the high reading, was on one of the new wells at the new site, and that we're not talking about the former well points.
Yep.
So
I
isn't
want
that
to.
right? So that doesn't. So the hard discussion about old equipment doesn't stand for that high reading that we had, because we're using new equipment and at a new site.
You're correct. And so I want to advance the slide. And so I'm going to show you water samples taken from Southeast and the new elementary school. This in particular has been conversations. And so to orient you to this particular chart, you're going to see in the left-hand column the dates that we were sampling. Going to the bottom, you'll see this is data going back to 2012. And then you'll see the testing locations. Those are the columns to the right. I believe the state is the agency that picks those testing locations. And you'll see up until May 19th, 2021, we were seeing trace amounts, non-detect, in the older wells. In September 7th, 21, we had the new wells drilled, and they were sampled, and the new water coming from well A and B were pretty much non-detect. They were well below action levels. However, water taken from inside the building, you'll see that in December of 2021, the kitchen hand sink had elevated amounts of lead that were tagged. That's in green highlight. So once that happens, then we're starting to look at sampling those areas more frequently. But in December, when the new wells were drilled, we knew that the water coming from the new wells had little to no lead in them. The lead was in the entry points within the building. So if you continue on going up the chart, you'll see that we had more lead being detected at the end of June, coming from various locations. But then when we retested the entry point water, we saw that those levels dropped, but they were just below the actual level. So water was tested again. I believe this is called raw water, where it comes directly from the well itself and independently. So we, instead of taking a combined sample, we were taking one sample from well A and one sample from well B. And you'll see those results are back down to non-detect or just slightly above, but well below the action level of lead.
Thank you. I think it would be helpful if in the title of this, that it was stated that this is testing for lead. You have to really read down at the very bottom where the note is, and then there are a couple of little other items that say lead. So it's not easy to find out what you're testing for. It would be probably helpful if it does say it in the heading. That's just ease of use. Thank you.
Catherine?
I'm a little concerned because on the kitchen hand sink, both times it was tested high, or tested lead, I should. Isn't that a little disconcerting to anybody? It is me.
Any amount of lead is concerning. Absolutely. So the hand sink, I should also have mentioned, Al and I have met with state DPH with water as a follow-up this summer to talk about especially the hits of lead in the kitchen. So what we heard was that for hand washing, there is not the risk of exposure for that. However, again, any amount of lead is not appropriate. So this is the June hit of June 24th, where we saw that second sample of water coming from the kitchen hand sink. That was not used for cooking. That was just cleaning of hands. And again, the exposure to the adults using that sink was very low, and certainly students that didn't have access to that sink.
Another question, please. You talk about the kitchen hand sink. What about the site where the dishes are washed? Because I think sometimes a residue can be left on dishes, and that isn't in here. Drinking fountain is, different rooms are. The hand sink in the kitchen is, but I would be interested to know about where, the facility for dishwashing, that water.
Yes, so perhaps Alan can answer to that. I don't believe that was tested, but we did ask that question with the state experts who have studied this, and they indicated that hand washing, dishwashing was not a concern about lead in the water.
Correct. They claimed that the residuals of lead were not of concern in those operations. We, just for extra precaution, we do plan on putting on filters for a lot of that equipment for this upcoming year. So filters that are rated for lead removal. So
Catherine, did you have a question?
I was just going to say that lead on dishes is concerning to me, but I feel better knowing that you guys are going to have filters. You say for the first year, hopefully for longer than that, because I've been hearing a lot of terrible things about new school wells and problems with the water, and every time I'm approached, I kind of go, well, yeah, I've heard the stuff as you, but I have no.
Well,
So a lot of people are concerned.
And that's why I'm bringing that to you, because I want you to have the data so that you can refer to this in terms of the last test of water from the wells for the new elementary school are well below non-detect or just slightly above that.
In the kitchen.
Well, remember that Southeast has been demolished, so all of those things that had lead in them are no longer there. So the facilities, plumbing, all of that will be removed with the demolition. So the new construction will correct all of that because obviously the old hand sink won't be there. Those fixtures won't be there.
All right, Peter.
Okay.
Continue.
So I wanted to, thank you, Alan. I wanted to also update you on COVID-19, on the guidelines. We were excited to be able to get some information from DPH, CDC, and the State Department of Education. They have shared their launching into healthy learning. And what is exciting about it, which is an odd thing to say given the pandemic and how serious this has been, is that we really want to maximize in-person learning. And so while we do that, it's of course in the context of keeping students, staff, and families safe. So we will continue to follow DPH's, the Department of Public Health's advisement, monitoring community levels, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I want to remind the board that in the spring, we had moved to making masks optional. We'll continue to have them and provide them when requested. We'll encourage all the safe practices that were in place to help mitigate any community spread of COVID. The State Department just delivered 2 test kits per student staff member that we have that we'll distribute, and that will continue to be on a weekly basis, checking with DPH to look at county and town data so that we are ready and able to respond as needed. What is important to see in the CDC guidelines and the State Department guidelines, that it's giving a lot of leverage to districts to make local decisions based on where they are with the community spread. So I want to caution the board that county numbers and town numbers don't often show exactly what's happening in our schools. And so we'll continue to look at all data points to make the best decisions and know that it's a continuum of what we'll do to respond to that. So thinking about safe practices like the physical distancing, cohorting, we will have all of those things in our toolkit and we'll use them when needed. But we're prepared for that. We've lived through that. We know what it looks like. But we're also excited to shift our focus to keep kids in school and to encourage them engage them in in-person learning. So here's the community level and the suggested strategies.
I just want to make sure that children who opt to wear their masks are given the same kind of breaks that they were given when everyone was wearing a mask. So outside or in the hallway to drop it down.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think one of the things that we learned through giving students mask breaks was that we all benefit from breaks, kinesthetic breaks, going outside. And so we look forward to having those best practices stay with us, regardless whether it's a mask or not. But point well taken. So looking at the slide of just community levels, again, it's looking at the metrics and data points that we were looking at last year, considering the hospital admissions, the number of people who are admitted to inpatient bed care, and again, knowing that it's never one data point that tells the whole story. So having the director of Department of Public Health here in town, Rob Miller, help us and be in that weekly contact to consult and respond as needed. And then I just wanted to shift to opening of school. And so we are well on our way, and I want a huge shout out to Principal Lauren Rodriguez and Assistant Principal Becky Granatini, and their teams. We're excited to launch one school in 2 campuses. I don't know if we're excited about the 2 campus part, but we are literally, from my understanding, rolling out the red carpet to have a great experience so that kids are thoroughly excited about the opening of school, and that cues of a potential transition when that new building opens is not visible. And so I just wanted to keep the board aware of our plans. So Vinton will host pre-kindergarten, kindergarten grade 1, Goodwin grades 2, 3, and 4. I know there was just a social. In fact, I'll invite Principal Rodriguez up, who can probably tell us a little bit about the popsicle social event that just happened. But I know that there has been intentionality to help consolidate the schools and build community in a safe, respectful way. So the board has heard the work from last year of Lauren meeting with staff members throughout the year to plan, to start to share norms. And then over the summer, there have been social events, and now we're starting to open up with strategic, engaging family student events. So Lauren, I'll let you share a little bit about that.
Thanks, Peter, and hello. Nice to see everyone. We just came off of a 2-hour huge celebration, Popsicle Social. Was housed at the Goodwin campus just now with the Ampiare family doing wonderful Ugandan music, and children across the entire town playing with one another. And I have to tell you, after all the years of putting these plans together, the feeling of just pride and appreciation for the work that you've done to support something that has been difficult. But I can tell you the embracing that we're seeing right now. There's an energy, there's an excitement, and the kids are ready. One of the families tonight, I was just checking in with people. How's your child doing? One mom says, children are resilient. It's the adults I worry about. And from my standpoint, the adults are ready. We had get-togethers this summer. Last spring, teachers are working as teams. They're getting to know one another. One day during leadership training today, I looked out the window, and you wouldn't know it, 3 teachers, 3 different elementary schools walking together, laughing, sharing. So, there's evidence in all different places. It is a transition. Some people are going to jump on that transition, more willingly and more able. So we're being supportive of the fact that people may be in different places. But that being said, there's a huge spirit around just wanting to support the children and the transition. So today was about playing together, having some ice, popsicles, having some great music. Next Friday, you'll be hearing a little bit about an open house. We changed our philosophy. The open house used to be in September after school had already been in session. But as you know, if children don't know what their class, that they're building, they don't know their teacher, we needed to be sensitive to be able to provide an environment where they'll know exactly where they're going when they get dropped off that day. And teachers are ready. We'll be working, the Teachers Association has been absolutely amazing and working with us and being in a place where they recognize the amount of time that's necessary to be able to create loving, supportive, vibrant classrooms. So if you were to walk through the building, you would see classrooms that are fully put together, ready for students. You would never think it was a temporary opening or temporary placement. Teachers have given absolutely everything that they have. Staff members coming in throughout the summer, regardless of their position, to be a part of making sure that this launches well. I feel like I have a supportive team in every turn, no matter where I look, because people just know how important that this is, and it's about kids. So we just keep going back to making sure that we're there to help families in the transition, and I believe we're starting to make some progress with that. So, any questions?
Sounds like all of the hard work that you folks have been doing for a long time now is really making a big difference. We thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Both Lauren and Becky are going to be at both sites. I know a lot of people have been asking, who's going to be the principal of the Vinton campus? And so the answer is there's one principal, one assistant principal, dashing between buildings. And so while they might have a home base, they will be co-leading in many ways and making sure that staff members, students, families see them and are present on both campuses, I believe every day or nearly every day. Yeah. I also want to just make note of the fact that Lauren has been an advocate to make sure that we have childcare at both locations. We're working with families to try to minimize any disruption. We know that this is inconvenient, that this represents a change in the family schedule and how we get kids to school and back. We're doing all we can. There is a staggered start time at the Goodwin campus, and so buses and arrival dismissal will start at the Vinton campus and then go to the Goodwin campus. So there's a bit of a 10-minute delay between two buildings that will solve once we open into one building. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren. Would you like to move on?
I would, actually. So with great excitement, I want to introduce our new Director of Teaching and Learning, Candace Morrell. You know Candace. In fact, some of the board members know Candace better than I do. But I have been treated to see a masterful educator, leader step into a completely new role that will indeed lift our vision to scale in profound ways. So, Candace was a teacher, assistant principal, Mansfield since 1999, definitely a UConn Husky with a Bachelor's of Science, Master's of Science, 6th year from NEAG, Education Leadership Policy Fellow. And what I have enjoyed most is Candace's tenacious focus on teaching and learning. We spent some time today with our curriculum teacher leaders and onboarding our new staff members, and I'm just thrilled and excited to introduce Candace. Welcome.
Thank you. And I just want to first say how grateful I am to have the opportunity to be in this role at Mansfield Public Schools. As Peter mentioned, my roots run deep here. Went to UConn and really never left this community, and have been so privileged to be part of a learning community that supports education, that supports students, that supports families. So I'd like to thank Superintendent Dart and our administrative staff for supporting and believing that this work was important and that I'd be able to be the right fit for this role. And a deep appreciation to the Board of Education members for the support of expanding this role and recognizing the value and importance of this position in supporting the incredible work of our brilliant teaching staff. I say that selfishly as a former educator and 6th grade science teacher and reading teacher here, but also as a building leader that has had the opportunity over the years to watch the masterful work of our teaching staff each and every day. And I really look forward to the opportunity to continue to support teaching and learning. And look forward not only to the work that we have committed to and the wonderful partnerships we have within our community, but also the partnerships that we look forward to building as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Candace, I'm sorry, I just want to say congratulations. We are very fortunate to have you be able to take the skills and all of the wonderful things that you have done at MMS and now spread it out through our district. So we are thrilled also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Candace.
Yeah.
I'm also thrilled to announce Mansfield Middle School's new principal, Larry Barlow. Larry was assistant principal. He is a person who comes with lots of middle school teaching experience. Has done his work at Eastern and Central and Sacred Heart University. And I love his student and teaching learning focus in terms of his leadership. Larry also serves on many different district and community teams, including Youth Service Bureau. He was a lead on the mural project for us. He's a member of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion team. He's also, over the years, supported through the induction of our new staff members, helping them enter the team process, and has been diligent in terms of making sure that that's a successful program, that it's not just compliance, it's really doing what it needs to do for our new teachers. Larry went through 2 rigorous rounds of interviewing. Our first round, we had community members, teachers, family members, and then the second round with administrators, with performance tasks. And again and again, through each of those experiences, it was clear that Larry's focus on students, on families, and on teaching and learning was clearly the best match for the middle school. So congratulations, Larry.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me. It's been an honor, quite frankly. I've always enjoyed my time in Mansfield. And, you know, sometimes as an assistant principal, you're looking for that next move. And I spent 8 years in the assistant principalship, but I didn't want to leave Mansfield. I think that's, many people that work in Mansfield can say that. You come here, you don't leave here, you retire here. And so I was surprised and excited at the opportunity that presented this, that unfolded this summer. So thank you. I really much appreciate that. Just to give you a little background, and just who I am and what has helped form me and shape me as an educator. As you see up there, it says 12 years teaching middle school. I taught 12 years at Lebanon Public Schools. And one major takeaway that I had as a social studies teacher there was building in rapport and relationship with students. And that's always been the heart of my teaching. That's been the heart of my leadership. You don't make it in Lebanon if you don't build good relationships. And you do that with your peers, and you do that with the kids. 8.5 years ago, I had a colleague in Lebanon say, hey, there's this opening in Mansfield. You ought to apply. And I said, you know what, let me check that out. And I did. And it was one of the best personal and professional advice I've received in my life. It led me to working with an amazing staff at Mansfield Middle School, wonderful community members and families, and of course, amazing students. I've been honored to work alongside Candace. She's helped mentor and shape me as a leader, and I can say that about every individual I've worked with in Mansfield Public Schools. You know, there's always something you can learn, and I espouse that growth mindset. But like I shared, I was ready for that next step, and I just wasn't sure when that was coming. So I'm glad that it came this year. Just to give you a little preview of some of the things I'd like to focus on this school year. Just knowing that background that I have, I'd like to focus on SEL competencies and practices. For example, next week we're going to do some norming, building norming, and develop that. And I'm eager to share those with you in the fall. Some of the outcomes of that work. It's something that we're ready for, and it marks the next chapter and the next step for our building. In closing, I just want to share something that I caught Peter mentioned. He mentioned a book called Good to Great. It's a book and a text that I just been reading. And one thing I saw Mansfield in that, because good to great, that concept of taking what's good and not just resting on your laurels, but turning that into something great. And Mansfield has done that work. We look to innovate, and I hope to continue making Mansfield and turning that good to great. So thank you, and I appreciate the support.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard
Yeah.
on the principal job. We're thrilled to see what you have in store for us in
Yeah.
the future. So
Thank
we're
you.
thrilled to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you. April.
I just wanted to make a comment to you
Yeah.
and Candace.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's a neighbor that has 2 grandkids in the middle school, and the kids adore the 2 of
Yeah.
you. So
We-
just wanted to pass that
We've been a
on.
great team, and
Yeah, they're really
obviously the next
excited.
layer is to find another teammate, but our partnership will continue, and I'm excited for her role. And sometimes we don't want to lose good talent, and so we're really fortunate to hold on to that. So thank you for sharing that.
Great. Thank
Yeah,
you, Larry.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have the update on the school building project. I was going to put it off a little longer so you guys could still be sitting and waiting, but we might as well get on with it. So I'll let Peter introduce our two guests.
Yes, so please welcome Randy Walakanis and Scott Pellman. Randy is the school building chair, and Scott is our owner's rep, associate director of Colliers. A lot has happened this summer, and I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of where we are in this amazing project. All eyes are on this final phase, and both have been doing a great job helping us monitor and advocate for the project. We know that we've missed the opening, but as I continue to share with people, the wait will be worth it. And so I'll turn it over to Randy and Scott. And I know we're going to go to a slide deck. So
Right. So we do have pictures to show you, which will probably explain better where we're at than anything I can actually say. But we will get to those in just a moment. So if you go out to the site now, you'll see a lot of changes in the last couple of weeks even. The old school is down. Basically, it's just a slab that's left. Other site work that was a precondition to getting a lot of other things done, but some of the other site work is now underway for stormwater management and things like that. If you look at, and the playground is going up, and so some of the other things that will be necessary for the kids are happening. If you look at the building itself, as you will see, all of the windows are in, the siding is mostly on. The shell looks quite good, it's quite weather tight. And work proceeds apace in the inside. The millwork, the cabinetry, and that kind of stuff is starting now. We've had, as you well know, our share of struggles with procurement issues. A few key elements that we've had to wait for, but one of the main ones was an outside air handling unit, which is now being installed this week. So that's some real progress. There are a few other items that we are waiting on, but we hope that within the next month, a lot of those things will be resolved, and so we're kind of cautiously optimistic that we'll get to the point where we're really truly in the very final stretch. And so maybe with that we can start looking at the pictures, and then we'll be happy to take questions.
sure.
All right, thank you, Randy. So what you see here, the first photo, and these were taken just a few days ago, so you may note that, even the demolition has progressed further, but this is, as you're driving by the site, this is the north elevation of the front elevation. You can see that that sort of kidney-shaped object is the inner part of the new bus loop, so they are starting to get some of the roadways ready for paving, and you're going to see quite a bit of progress over the next month. To the next slide. Yeah, here you can see there's still a bit of the remaining school. This is actually now completely gone. The materials are coming out. They've been following all the environmental protocols and everything for removal of the building. Once this is removed, and again, this was a key component of finishing up some of the site. We've got to get the site storm drainage, the new parking lot that's going to go there. So we're excited to see the old building down, and now you're really going to start getting much clearer views of the new building. This is just an elevation from the backside showing more of the south from the western end. You can see all of the PV panels that are part of the net zero school, that's going to give us the energy to make this a net zero project. There still is the old pump house you see on the bottom left. That's going to be coming down in about the next week. Just above there, a large pile of topsoil. So again, you can see that the contractor is getting ready to start putting some of those finishing touches on the building. And then at the top of the screen, you'll note over by our softball field that was taken over by construction, they're going to start pulling the trailers, start pulling some of that material out. Work is going to begin in that area to start restoring that within about 2 weeks. We were told about the middle of September. You're going to see that area start to be cleaned up. They're going to rework, open, aerate all the lawn area, bring in all new topsoil, and then sod is going to be going in to restore that outside of the field. So not only are you going to see quite a bit of work going on around the building itself, but we're going to see finally the long-awaited restoration of the ball field. Again, continuing on the outside of the building, north and east side, this is the loading area. The higher portion sort of in the center of the picture with all the glass, that is the dining commons where the students will be eating, letting a lot of natural light in, and just to the right of that is the new gymnasium. You can see they're prepared to and are actually at this point where the icon is right now, starting to sheathe that. I think the next photo, moving around to the north, it's a little hard to see here, but the Ipe siding is given on. This is the next elevation of the gymnasium, working your way around. Again, there was a number of elements that, from a procurement standpoint, that took a while to get installed. The building, for the most part, is completely enclosed. They've got some temporary doors on, but all the windows are finally in. We couldn't start doing a lot of the site work around the building till the windows and the siding was in, because you've got these big machines, and we can't run those big machines over all our nice new sod and plantings and so forth. So it's been a progression, certainly not as quickly as we had originally hoped, but who could have anticipated what we've been dealing with for the last 2 years. Down around the back of the facility, this is some of the flat work, site work that's going in, some of the new walkways leading out towards the wooded area. Again, this is another photo of that. In what you see in front of you is actually going to be a sloped lawn area and in sort of a natural outdoor kind of an amphitheater learning area that they're quite excited about. Again, here you see this is, again, a lower, now we're down on ground level, elevation of the gym, and actually the siding and all has already turned the corner and is starting to be applied to the eastern facade. Again, just another picture as we go around. This is actually the main office. There is a canopy that I believe was going to start being erected today, the steel for that going up. You can see some of those wood blocks standing on end. Those are the foundations, the bolts coming out of the foundations for the nice canopy. So there's going to be a very nice welcoming canopy in front of the facility. That's not up yet. If you drive by within the next 2 weeks, you should see that canopy fully erected. Again, coming around the back of the building, this is coming out from the lower area. Again, you see that sloped area. That is going to be that planted area out in the back down to a lower patio. Again, in this area, they are starting to get this cleaned up. We're anticipating some of the grass and seed and topsoil placement happening within the next few weeks. And this is at the opposite end. Again, just shows some of the siding installation complete, the zinc siding, some of the walkways that are progressing out from the building. And again, lower elevation. This is the loading area showing the 2-story academic wing, and just to the right of the screen again would be the dining commons that we saw earlier. So progressing in, this is the A wing. This is one of the upper classrooms. As you can see, the drywall's in. The nice wood beams are still protected and wrapped with some paper. They're getting ready to put the ceilings in. These spaces are pretty much ready for final finishes, casework installation, so they're buttoned up. So now it's really starting to put some of the finishing touches into these spaces. Classroom A corridor wing, you can see that all the mechanicals, electricals are in, majority of the drywall's completed. You're going to see in the next photo, which is a continuation of this, they're starting to put in the ceiling grids. Once the ceiling grid is in, they'll start putting in the lighting fixtures, getting the final sprinkler system installed. So again, once we get to this point of the project, things are going to progress much quicker. End of corridor A, this is actually, I believe, the skylight area and a raised ceiling area in the administration in reception area. This is one of the 5 toilet rooms. This one is in B wing. Each of them have a very bright color, as you can see here. Yellow, there's blue, there's red. It's a wayfinding to help the students orient themselves as they're going through the facility. You can see what those flat areas are actually hands-free sinks. So the students will use the facilities, come out around the front from a monitoring standpoint. If somebody's there, can watch, make sure they're washing their hands, and then proceed back to their classrooms. This is downstairs classroom B wing, so this is on the lower level, so you don't see those nice cathedral ceilings. However, this space is just about ready for final paint and flooring. You can see the casework is in, you can see the ceilings are in, the light fixtures have been installed. A little bit of a different feel to this space because it doesn't have the cathedral ceiling on the lower level, but you can see the level of completeness of this room. Again, corridor B wing, again, the B area is progressing, has progressed a little quicker than the A wing. So you can see here, not only is the ceiling grids in, but you're starting to get in speakers, light fixtures installed, and the acoustical panels are going into the ceiling. This is a view from the inside. This is looking down into, again, what we're calling that dining commons. This is a 2-story space. To the upper left, you're seeing what will be the media center. And then if you continue down the elevation, that turns into the 2-story gymnasium auditorium. This is one of the things that Randy was alluding to. This is the dedicated outside air unit. You can see certain components of it. It's been coming in pieces. Really, one of the main challenges that we're facing with, and just the contractor is getting resolved now, was getting both the outside air and components for the remainder of the heating and ventilating system installed. And again, there were some significant procurement issues. They were able to procure this in pieces, so as soon as they got a piece, they've installed it. A few more of those pieces are coming in this week. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get that going, but certainly we're looking forward to the point where we can start bringing some fresh air and ventilating this building out and using that system to help with the finalization of all the interior finishes. Again, you can see these are some of the heat pump units that are going on. These are the integral pieces that are tied into all of your geothermal wells, and this is really where the cost savings and the magic happens as far as being a very, very efficient building. Again, just another shot, MEP installations, piping. It's more exciting to the contractors than it is to us.
That's the end of the slides, and so perhaps there may be some questions from the board.
I know Catherine had a question.
Actually, I have a lot of questions. My first concern is the air unit. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly or not, but I was under the, I'm thinking that they were supposed to be responsible for putting it in here, not the Connecticut contractors. Does that screw up our warranty?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but the warranty will not start until the units have been installed, commissioned, and the building is substantially complete. That will start the warranty period. And substantial completion is a component of the project where not only with your building officials, but the architect will have to say the building is at a point where it's substantially complete. Your commissioning agent has tested all of the mechanical systems are functioning properly, and at that point and that point only will your warranty start.
I'm just talking about the DOAS thing. I understand it was in Texas, and I was under the impression that they were going to be installing it.
Well, the mechanical trades contractor is installing it, so
Okay.
but again.
And it doesn't mess up the warranty?
No.
When Southeast was demolished, did we take into consideration recycling as has been promised?
Yes, as much of the building components, it's kind of a single stream recycling, but the contractor is tracking that as well as all of the other construction debris generated by the project. Whatever is possible that can be recycled, it is being done so. We've been pushing them. You're getting us updated reports. We'll have a final report at the end of the project to how much was recycled, stayed out of the landfill. Certainly, as you're aware, there are some components where the existing building did have some environmental concerns.
Right.
Certainly, those components and pieces can't be recycled.
Well, no, obviously. You said that you guys used one of the softball fields. I was under the impression that none of the softball fields were going to be used.
No, the plan and from the start of construction, I think it's Field C, was identified as an area for laydown and construction use. It was put into the project and bid as part of the project for the contractor to restore that field.
not what I remember from board meetings. The planting area where you were talking about the hill.
Mhm.
What kind of planting are you?
I don't have that committed. I couldn't answer that specifically. I think it's mostly grass in a few trees.
That's going to be tough to mow. It's grass.
I could be mistaken, but I would have to defer to the landscape architect who's not.
The cathedral ceilings, how are they going to be as far as heating goes? It's like heat rises?
Yep, and there is ductwork, and as far as where the outside air comes in, they use the systems, and the way it was designed is to stratify the air to get air movement throughout those spaces. Again, I'm not a mechanical engineer, but the engineers do take that into account, as well as you had a commissioning agent and a special consultant that was assisting with the net zero design that all looked at not only thermal envelope, airflow, energy usage. The building has been designed to work harmoniously to, maximize comfort, minimize energy usage.
Just to comment, the hallways, judging by the ladder that was there, the hallways seem really narrow. Yep, next one.
I think it's a forced perspective of the camera, because we walked it yesterday with a group of people, and I don't think any of us as adults were challenged walking 2 or 3 people side by side. So I think it's
Really?
probably
3?
just a little bit more of a perspective issue.
Wow, impressive. I've heard 2 things. Number one, that there's a rather lengthy, I'm calling it a punch list of issues. And then also I've heard that we're footing the bill for moving. I don't necessarily believe that should be our bill to pay, since they're the ones who have not come in on time. And I understand COVID put a delay on stuff, but not our problem.
Yeah, I will say that we are, along with the town, just actively reviewing the contract and those requirements and obligations. I really can't comment any further than that, but certainly our goal is to maximize the taxpayer dollars, also make sure that this building is built and we get every single thing we were promised and we're going to pay for, and that the quality does not suffer in any way, shape, or form. So the final product is everything that we expected.
So by rushing it through, they're not skimping on quality.
We would not allow them to rush it through. So no, quality is going to be maintained.
Okay.
Anyone else? April?
Hi, as somebody who's pretty new to the board, and I haven't been here from the beginning, I really appreciate all the photographs, and I appreciate you explaining it. It looks beautiful. So thank you for all the photographs and explaining it so clearly.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Martha?
I have several questions. I understand that the cement floor dusting issue, which concerns me, that the cement floor may not have been laid correctly. There wasn't a layer of stone put down on top of the sheath, and that could be the reason for the dusting, and that there was contemplation of pouring a laminate substance on top of that, which to me flies in the face of a building that's supposed to be environmentally friendly. So that's one observation. Then I understand there is an asbestos abatement issue with the concrete that was mentioned today. It could be an extra at least $300,000 to more dollars to work on the abatement there. And that's an open-ended fee. Then next, I understand a lot of change orders that could be like over $100,000 of change orders, and I don't know why we're paying for contractor errors if they are contractor errors. And there's roof angle, the steps, the concrete floor, concrete wall, asbestos issue. And I just don't know how all these major issues are occurring, especially Catherine mentioned the 37 pages, which I have read, of, anomalies. I don't know why these aren't caught, because we have Colliers, we have a town building inspector, we have town engineers, and we have an architect. We have all these people on site to supposedly working in unison to make sure that these things don't happen. So it's really disturbing to me that we end up paying invoices or prospectively paying invoices for change orders. And Catherine mentioned the moving fee. I was stunned at the July 28th meeting that $3 million was approved to pay a contractor who has been delivering a product that they admit that I understood that there is admission of rushing through. So
Martha, I'm going to interrupt for just a moment.
Sure.
You're putting out a lot of
Okay.
questions. I think if you could narrow it down to questions that these gentlemen can answer,
Yeah,
I think
that's-
we might
that's-
start
oh,
losing
that's-
track.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, no worries. Just
Oh,
if you could.
Yeah, I just want to know, I mean, we've got, I just think we need to have all these people, Colliers and the building inspector and the town engineer, all standing up for the town and protecting the town from all these purchase change orders, the moving issue, the cement floor, and so forth, and that this shouldn't be on the back of the taxpayer, that these things are happening. And I just want to bring those things up and see what, see what we can do about, lessen.
Martha, I'm sorry to interrupt again.
That's it.
Thank you. Let's give the gentleman an opportunity to respond.
All right, let me hopefully see
Yeah,
how
if you got
good
it
my
all.
short-term memory is here, but you can always refresh it. So
Yeah.
starting out with the dusting issue, actually the dusting issue, as we understand, is really a curing issue. It has nothing to do with the placement of a vapor barrier below or the stone or how the concrete slabs were poured, but a matter of how they were cured ultimately over time. So they've been doing some testing on the floors. There are some different mastic materials and things that the flooring contractors can use to put the floors down. We're trying to ensure that everyone is in agreement with whatever resolution it is to the chalking issue, which is not consistent throughout the building, but only in certain areas. In that the final product, you maintain your warranty, that the manufacturer and manufacturer's representative, along with the installing contractor and architect, are all in agreement on the final flooring installation. So it has nothing to do with stone or some of the other things that you're hearing. The asbestos that was found, I think your quote that you mentioned is probably 3 to 4 times what we've calculated with the environmental engineer who's monitoring the removals of all the asbestos. It was a hidden condition underneath the slab, below the existing walls and foundation. There was no way to, ascertain whether it was or wasn't there prior to the demolition process. There are unit costs that were built into the bidding. So when materials like that are discovered, they are removed by the unit cost that was competitively bid as part of the project. At this point, there has not been a formal punch list produced by the architect. What you're seeing initially or hearing of is we make it a requirement that the contractor go through and do an advanced punch list of all the things. And, as you can see from some of the photos, there's, quite a difference in areas of the building as far as completeness. So they're putting a lot of things on there that, really aren't complete or ready for a final punch list. But these are preliminary punch lists to give the contractors direction on, what needs to be completed. But at this point, final punch lists have not been completed. I think if you were listening earlier to the building committee meeting, there was an issue with the roof edge and detailing, and it was not a contractor mistake. In fact, what we've classified it as is an error and omission to the design team. There was a detail that wasn't properly coordinated. This is addressed by the contract, and the contract that was signed with the architect. Once a certain threshold is achieved, then the architect's liability insurance takes over for those types of issues. We have not reached that contractual threshold yet. Unfortunately, there are change orders on projects. The architect is not perfect. There are sometimes hidden conditions, such as the asbestos that we just encountered in the existing building demolition. It's why we plan contingencies and build contingency funds into the project. We give the building committee typically bi-weekly updates of every contingency item pending, whether it may turn into an issue or not, the status of their overall contingency and how healthy that contingency fund is, so the building committee can make fully informed decisions on any expenditure. And all of those change orders are fully vetted in multiple meetings by the architect, by Colliers, presented and discussed with members of the building committee, and revised before they're presented. And I will say, as far as the contractor's payment application, those also get fully reviewed by Colliers, by the architect. I will say that the one that was just submitted recently and the one previous to that have been cut because we look at them, we compare them to the work that has been done, and then the architect certifies and signs those pay applications. So we are looking at them very closely to make sure that they accurately represent the work in place. And we do modify, cut, strike those line items and have revisions done pretty much every month before they're presented to the committee for payment. I think, Randy, I may have hit on.
Yeah, I think that covered most things. I will say, and you said who's standing up for the town, but it's a complicated building, and there's some things will sometimes not get installed properly the first time or whatever. But we have representatives from Colliers that are out there. We have the architect that comes on site. We have a commissioning agent that reviews things. Even the contractor himself will review items that the subcontractors do. And so, and whenever they see something, they'll make a list of it. Those things all have to get resolved. Every single thing that is on there that is found to be not quite up to spec has to get resolved before we can sign off on it. And so there's a very significant quality control process in place, and the commissioning agent will come in and review things as well. So there's multiple levels of review, and anything that is not done quite up to snuff the first time does get fixed, and confident about that.
Anyone else have any questions?
I just wanted to follow up on a couple things if no one else has a question.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope these things get resolved, and I hope it's not at the taxpayer's expense. It shouldn't be. I am dismayed that that these things are happening. It seems to be with regularity, because we have so many checks and balances on site that it seems unusual that these things would happen at such a rate. The asbestos thing, I would think that might be a commonplace issue. So it's a surprise to me that it was a surprise to everyone else. At least from what I'm understanding, it was a surprise.
Can I address that, Martha?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead,
So
please.
the building was very carefully inspected before demolition. We had an idea of just about everything. There were some areas that you could not get to. For underneath a slab, for instance, that's where this asbestos is that has been found. You can't get underneath there. And so that's one of those things that's it's an unknown. You plan for it just in case there is a surprise like that. But there's no way to find that ahead of time.
Catherine? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see her.
No, Catherine, go ahead.
Actually, this is Jeanette. I'm going to go ahead first. Thank you, Catherine. I just wanted to say that this is a very complicated project. It's a complicated structure. We all knew that going in. We have a very strong building committee. We worked very hard to pick, well, I didn't because I was on the board, but other people worked very hard to pick a contractor who would handle this project appropriately. We have had some glitches, but that's to be expected in construction. But we also have, in the reading that I've done and the explanations we've gotten, we have processes in place to take care of these issues, and that process has been working. So I just want to let the building committee and our contractor know that I do have faith in you to follow that process and to allow us to complete the building and have a wonderful home for our elementary school students. Thank you.
Catherine?
Just a couple of clarifications. The asbestos found was found underneath southeast.
Correct.
Okay.
Under the floor.
Yeah,
So it's just like
it was part of the
concrete floor.
demolition of southeast. It was, and knowing what I know about buildings, par for the course. And then, I'm a little confused about the punch list that I called the punch list, the 37 items. Was that by the contractors or was that by our town that came up with that list? When you said it, I heard both, so I'm
So I
just
think
not.
by punch list, what that usually refers to, and Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, is once we think everything is correct, and then
Correct.
that's kind of the final checklist.
I'm just calling it a punch list for
Yeah.
lack of better word.
But there's a process that goes on while the building is being constructed, which is probably separate from the typical understanding of the word punch list. But there's a process in which things get inspected by multiple parties, just to make sure that everything is installed as it should be and is going to function properly.
So
That's
who wrote
not-
the 37?
That's a
list?
compilation of all the things that they found over the course.
Who's they?
Well, it could be the architect. The architect has a list. Colliers maintains.
Okay, so it
a
was
list,
not necessarily from the people that are building the schools.
They
coming-
find a lot of things on their own and take care of them as well. But they're monitoring things. And this is different than the final punch list that we'll have, which we do just, once the building is essentially complete, before we take occupancy.
Any other questions or comments?
I just, if no one else has a comment, just Catherine mentioned the DOAS air unit and that it came in segments. And I guess I understood it was supposed to be one unit. It was supposed to arrive assembled. So and it came in segments. And so we had to pay somebody to put it together. Am I understanding that right? Or did the
No, you're not understanding that
company
right.
who made it send people to unite it all, or what?
Yeah, so it actually gets shipped in pieces, and there's even a map that's printed on the side of it that shows all the different segments. And so the segments come in, because it's a very large, it's like 30 feet long or something like that. It's a huge thing once it's all assembled. But it goes together, I don't know, like Tinker Toys or something, but it gets assembled by pieces. And so that they can move all those pieces. But that's the normal way that's done. That's, it was expected for the subcontractor to assemble it in that way.
Okay, so the fact that the engineering company who made this didn't put it all together, that's not going to be a mark against us.
No, that's the way it ships. That's just the way it works.
Okay.
All right, thank you. There are no other questions. I would like to thank you, gentlemen, very, very much for all your work, all your good work. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it, and thank you for your patience tonight.
I definitely want to concur and support that. Thank you, Randy, for your leadership. It has been an amazing journey, a lot of work, meeting periodically and following up. And all of the concerns that were addressed and discussed tonight were because of the diligence of our owners rep, Colliers, and Randy and the building committee. And so having attended many of those meetings, I can definitely attest to the level of detail and attention to follow up and making sure that people are accountable to correcting it. the wait is going to be worth it, and we will be proud to have this amazing net zero building. And it will be ready to receive students and faculty soon. So, thank you.
Thank you, Randy and Scott. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Have a good night.
I want to shift the conversation to another project that is nearing completion. So I'm going to invite our Director of Facilities, Alan Corson, back up. You know that the middle school roof project has been ongoing. We've completed the roof portion of the project in the summer. We saw the installation and continued work on the photovoltaic cells with an expected completion by September, October, maybe November. So Alan?
Sure. Just to get everyone caught up, the roof, we had scheduled it to get replaced in 2021, the summer of, but it's about 90,000 square feet of roofing that we replaced on the middle school, or at least the what used to be the old roof sections. The part that's the library, we did not touch. That's a metal roof, and expect it to have another 20, 30 years at least on that. So the rest of the roof, we went about replacing. Delays in materials pushed things. The materials got delivered in October. We decided to go with it, and we started late October, went through, and mostly had things done by the end of December, beginning of January. We had about 20% left of the roof, and that took another couple of months because of weather, and we got a lot of rain then, which would be nice if we had it now, but it also helped test our roof, and we discovered some leaks in the new roofs, and we've been we had those repaired as we discovered those. So the roof is now complete, and the solar system, they delivered the solar panels a week or two ago, and they've started installation on the solar panels. So that they expect to complete within 2 weeks now. So the part that will wait on that is the actual turning it all on, because they're waiting for the generator, which is coming, we're hoping, in October. When the generator comes, they make the connection in with the generator to get the solar going. So the solar won't, it'll be there, but it won't actually be running or producing until we get the generator in.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Alan, this may sound like a pretty naive question. How long does solar start producing energy right away, or is there a lag time, or does it have to warm up, I guess is what I'm asking?
Not so much, no.
Okay.
You know, even I'm not clear how they keep it dissipated, because it's producing, and I think they just sort of let it produce, but it's not going anywhere, so
Okay, thank you.
the paths aren't there, so.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Alan.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks for all your work on this.
You're welcome.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And between these two projects, the net zero and the middle school roof project, I think it illustrates the district and community's commitment to sustainability and being a global citizen. I think that we should be proud of that. And more importantly, investing in our middle school building is important. And so I'm ready for the last item.
Would you like to go over the ARPA ESSER grants?
Absolutely.
Update?
Yes, thank you. So for our final piece tonight, I just wanted to update the board in terms of the Arp Sr3 funding. That was funds that came from the federal government to continue to best support students, to accelerate learning, provide support with professional learning, and services like SEL, to be creative and create opportunities to close that opportunity gap that we saw narrow because of the pandemic. And so I just wanted to update you that we've continued to look at that, and we realigned the funds to best support some key pieces that are directly related to our data and needs, and more importantly, our development plan. So we'll continue to support professional learning. In fact, today was day 4, our final SEL, Social Emotional Learning Institute. We ran 2 of them, and I want to thank Dr. Patwa for her leadership in running that. I think we had a total of 70 plus staff members attend. both certified teachers and paraeducators. Hugely successful, and that was supported by our Arp ESSER grant. So we'll continue to support that work as it aligns and best supports our teachers. We'll continue to support intervention in order to close the gap, accelerate learning, close the learning loss. The board has heard about how we've utilized tutors to help extend those services, so that we're looking at before, after school opportunities. We've hired retired teachers who are interested in coming in and working part-time. We'll continue to support that and actually have increased the level of staffing support that will be available for students. And then finally, just looking at bigger pieces of how we support enrichment, making sure that we are thinking about the opportunities for all students to be supported with those critical related arts, extracurricular opportunities that sometimes happen after school, but we've also looked creatively at ways to build in new programs using the Arp ESSER funds. And then finally, wellness. We know that through the pandemic, one of our best moves was to turn to each other, check in and think about wellness of the adults, because if we're not whole, we're not going to be our best selves helping and supporting our families and students. And so my hat is off to our teachers and staff members who worked tirelessly through the pandemic and last year, knowing that it was a heavy lift at times as we navigated COVID data and pivoting. And so wellness is not only for students, but acknowledging the staff members, that we need to create experiences and events that help us stop what we're doing and check in. And so opportunities for Zumba and meditation, yoga, those kinds of experiences were offered, and we look forward to continuing that for this year. Thank you.
Catherine?
You skipped over the one I had a question about. Resources, systems to support MTSS.
Great. I'm glad you picked up on that. Thank you.
Yeah, because I want to know what MTSS is. We need a little.
I know. It's our love of acronyms and EduSpeak. So
we need a book of acronyms so I don't get lost.
It's funny you say that, because we've been working on a glossary of all the words that we use, because it is an equity move to make sure people know what we're talking about. So I appreciate you asking that. So MTS is a multi-tiered system of supports. I think the easiest way to think about this is, what do we do for all students? What do we do for some students? And what do we do for a few students? So if we think of reading, how do we teach all students reading? Some students need something additional. They're not quite getting everything that they need, or they just need extra time, extra supports. And so MTSS is, how do we know when the student needs something, and then what do we do about it? Do they need time with a tutor? Do they need additional materials? Do they need small group instruction? And then a few students who really are challenged. They are the emerging readers, and for whatever reason, we need to do a deeper dive, looking at the child one-on-one, making sure that we align our best strategies, our best resources, and put an individualized plan in place for that child. And so MTSS, which is sometimes called response to intervention, sometimes called scientific research-based interventions, is really a way of just saying that we want to predict that sometimes we will need to support students with additional experiences to close that learning loss or that gap in learning.
Will the titles still be in place, or are we replacing them?
No, title funding is still in place, and we still utilize that. The Title I funding is part of the kind of constellation of intervention supports. So, for example, our reading coaches, who often work one-on-one as an interventionist, are supported by title funds.
I wasn't really meaning the fund part. I was actually meaning actual teaching part of the kids.
I see. Oh, the title itself. Yeah.
That they're still in place, that children are still able.
Yes.
Any other questions? I do have one question, Peter. And we've talked about this before. relative to other things. When this grant money is finished, are we still going to be doing all this good stuff?
Well, so that's an important part of ESSER ARP, is that it's supplementing, not supplanting. In other words, we're using the funds strategically, not to replace things that we should be funding ourselves that are currently in place and that are needed. However, let's take example of the tutor, because I know the board has been monitoring that and has been interested, as we are, to see the effect of just that simple move. And so through the budget process, we will have to identify the successful practices that we've been funding through this grant to shift them to our general budget.
I've been arguing tutors for years, and I've also been arguing more outside or break time for kids. So I'm really glad that both of those are happening.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Great, that was excellent. Thank you, Peter. Well, I think that brings us to a motion to adjourn. April, a second? Thank you, Jeanette. No, not for a special agenda. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any objections to adjourning? All right, we are adjourned at 7:31. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kathy.